Get to know your district here on Friday morning, the segment where Jason and I scour the country to find and shed light on all the districts of soccer across our fair country. And we are going to focus on Charlotte, North Carolina today. And we're joined by supporter Greg Franco. Welcome to Morning Kickaround, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Jason, Rob.
Yeah, so it's been quite the journey. You said that you and your son went to the very first game for Charlotte FC and have, become entrenched in the team, becoming part of the supporters group, part of the kind of the infrastructure, setting up the tifos and whatnot. But before we get into the specifics of that journey and that experience with the Major League Soccer team, kind of like what is the kind of the landscape for soccer in town? Is there robust youth leagues? Is there small teams or did it kind of just drop in and people all of a sudden are engaged in soccer? Kind of what was the scene for soccer in Charlotte before CFC came about?
Yeah, I think it's a mix. So there's several teams. Charlotte Independence right now is in USL League One. They were in the final against NCFC a few years back. My son actually plays for their youth club, one of their competitive U13 teams. And as I said, he's a big reason why I've gotten into the soccer scene here in Charlotte. We also have the Carolina Ascent, which are a USL Super League women's team that premiered last year. I think they went 10 matches without a loss. So that was a pretty exciting start. Other than that, we, in addition to Charlotte FC coming on board, we also have their MLS Next Pro Club, which is just outside of Charlotte. That's actually how my son and I both met Patrick Ajimang, who we'll talk about in a little bit. He's also from Connecticut, which we moved from Connecticut back in 2017. So they formed a little bit of a friendship, which is, pretty funny. He's an 11-year-old kid. They've done a jersey swap. He asked Pat to do the gritty one time after a goal, and sure enough, Pat did it. So my son went absolutely wild. So it's a fun time for sure.
That's great. I think, okay, I'm going to just come at this with, I'm maybe going to build a little bit of a straw man here, and I'll apologize for that. But I definitely think there are parts of our country and fan bases and people who are sort of steeped in soccer in certain parts of the country. I would say, New York, New Jersey, Southern California, you might throw a couple other places in there who think, oh, that's the South. They don't do soccer in the South. That's football country. Like they only care about throw ball, pigskin, gridiron, whatever derogatory name you want to use for that. I am a big football fan, but I get it, right? And you being from Connecticut, I imagine, or moving from Connecticut, I imagine you have a perspective on this too. I'm curious what you thought you were walking into soccer-wise, or how you found the soccer culture to be maybe compared to some other places that you've experienced, because I think we've seen it in Atlanta. Now we're seeing it in Charlotte. I think people kind of miss that soccer really is a big deal in these parts of the country that have been thought of as football land.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, right? North Carolina is definitely a hotbed for youth soccer. No question about it. There are several youth programs in the area. As I mentioned, my son plays for Charlotte Independence. They have Charlotte Soccer Academy, QC Mutiny, which is also an MLS Next club. So they have actually a U13 squad. It's actually a little bit overwhelming as a parent just to kind of navigate that youth soccer scene. And just as an aside, one thing that's been great is I've been able to connect with a few of the players from Charlotte FC. Andrew Privett's dad is actually has become a friend of mine. So when I have some questions about youth soccer and my son making his way up, I've reached out and asked questions. So I just love the fact that you're able to have those connections. And I think that's a little bit different than, some of the other sports. You mentioned football, baseball, things like that. There's definitely a closer connection I see, to the team, to the squad. And I think that's what really drew us in.
So when Charlotte FC is announced and then eventually lost, like how did that come about? Like, what is it like to be a soccer fan and all of a sudden a team that wasn't there all of a sudden is?
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. I wasn't what I refer to, or what we refer to as, a day zero supporter, right? There were folks that were, championing this, well before we were awarded a club. So we came in a little bit later. As I mentioned, we went to the first match. We sat in the upper bowl. Really didn't have any idea what we were getting into. I remember There's a picture from our first match. Yeah. So I remember looking down in the supporter section, just seeing the passion, the emotion. And from then on, I said, that's where I want to be. And we've been there ever since. So my son sits in the first row of the supporter section. He has his own little crew now of kids, that'll be our next generation of supporters. And I have a lot of folks that I not only consider friends, but family at this point, going into season 4. So we truly have something special here in Charlotte.
So obviously the one thing that we talk about a lot with MLS teams, expansion teams, is sort of what kind of interest is there among casual sports fans, or just sort of within the community? Now we're all living in an era where there are fewer and fewer things that connect all of us, even in a place like Charlotte, even in one city. But I'm curious, like, if you can give us a snapshot, Greg, of sort of how local media's responded to Charlotte FC, sort of, whether or not it percolates into places like sports talk radio or anything like that, if you have a handle on that, because I think that is a good measure of just how impactful a new team can be.
Yeah, I think we've definitely had a lot of support from local media. They do, mention we're not just an afterthought. Some of it, we've pushed ourselves when we have like a text line on WFNZ. We've coordinated where we just inundate their lines at a certain date and time, with text. So, so there is a ton of support around. And now it's becoming a lot more exciting. I think that we're gaining a lot of notoriety, bringing in Dean Smith last season, big name, highly respected in the sport. So, I think it's growing each year. And I'm watching these supporters groups grow as well. And one of the other pieces is really the diversity that we have. There's people from all different cultures. And there are folks that I never would have met, right, without the team, without the supporters groups. Folks ranging from 20 to 60 that, again, I wouldn't know otherwise.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that a little bit, if you'll let me, Rob, because I don't want to paint this like I'm talking only about sort of, I don't know how to describe, mainstream English speaking culture. Obviously, so much of soccer in this country is and passion for it, and supporters groups and everything are driven by immigrants or by people first generation, second generation families who come from other places. So I imagine that's got to be part of it as well, Greg.
Oh, definitely. My son has learned his fair share of Spanish. Probably some words he shouldn't know, but it's, that's part of the gig, right? So, but it's the diversity. It's bringing in, pieces from all different cultures, right? We have a lot of South American folks. We have folks from England, and we're putting our mark on that, right? And as I said, Charlotte is very much a transplant city. We joke that it's very rare to meet somebody from here. Everybody's from somewhere else, whether it's Ohio, New York, but they're all bringing their perspective, their thoughts, their ideas. So that's what makes it exciting as well.
Going into year 4, let's talk about the fun stuff. The MLS season is, a week or so away now, which is wild to think about. But you said you guys have a relationship with Patrick Agyemang, who kind of stepped onto the scene with his January camp goals and appearances, and then the addition of Premier League stalwart Wilfried Zaha. What's the feeling in the fan base, and what do you think? Do you think that the team on a whole is ready for a big step up the table in 2025?
Yeah, I think, Patrick Agyemang's call up in January, that was big for him. 2 appearances, 2 goals. Going into it as supporters and as fans, we didn't know if he was going to get any minutes. So to see him start in that first match was just incredible. To see him score there was a lot of emotion. As I mentioned, we've watched him, after he was drafted in the MLS Super Draft from University of Rhode Island, watching him with Crown Legacy for a year, which is a very intimate setting, and you get to know folks. It's just been exciting to watch him grow. That front line, as you said, having Wilfried Zaha and his technical skills. I think that might be the piece that that really makes us a contender. Top 4 in the league. And we had additions last year of Liel Abada and Pep Biel, who came in mid-season. Those folks now, will have an entire preseason with the squad. So I think that helps a lot. And then, you turn to the defense, which was, I think, second in the league in goals allowed, 1.08. You have them anchored by Christian Kalina, who was the MLS goalkeeper of the year. And then you have Andrew Privet and Adilson Malanda in front of him. And then, of course, U.S. men's team, Tim Ream. So a lot of excitement in Charlotte.
Yeah. So before we wrap up with you, Greg, and you giving us a good overview, what do you think is the thing that makes Charlotte's soccer culture or Charlotte FC support sort of unique? Because, that's one thing as American soccer people that we kind of wrestle with is like, how is this just ours? How is this different from what Atlanta's got going on, or maybe what they're doing in New York or California, whatever? What do you think is like the unique characteristic of Charlotte FC in soccer?
Oh, that's a good question. I probably touched on it before, but I think it's just having all those unique perspectives. And again, being a transplant city and just having those different perspectives, the different types of chants, right? We talk a lot about chants and drums, and we have several meetings. And there's
What's the best song? What's the best song Charlotte FC has at a match? You got one, right? Come on. What's your favorite? I put you on the spot. I feel bad now.
You did. We do have a chant.
Go
for
Charlotte.
Yeah, we do have a chant for Ashley Westwood, which is to the tune of "Achy Breaky Heart."
Okay. All right.
That's a good one as well. So that came about last season. Which, by the way, Ashley Westwood, awesome guy. You couldn't ask for a better captain. We do not like Orlando. So there are some chants with some probably some questionable language as well. So
all right.
Yeah.
I want to show one more picture that Greg sent us, Robert. This is his son. This is just an incredible picture. Like, I can't.
My favorite, yeah.
That is an incredible picture. I don't even know what to say about it. Just that is boss right there. So that's great. I'm glad that all of this has come together. Can you shed a little bit more before we let you go? Shed a little bit more light on the relationship with Patrick, how that came about, and give us a little bit more about what Patrick Agyemang has come to mean to your kid.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has helped. My son's name is Paul. I think it's helped him know that, hey, there is a path, if I want to work hard and make it. There's been a few stories lately. I mean, Patrick was a Division III player, right? He played for Eastern Connecticut State University and then ended up with URI. So, I think he's kind of paved the way that, hey, anyone can make it if you put in the work. So, and he's pretty determined, at 11, he's playing U13, where I've told him, I'll take you as far as you want to go. So, and he's pretty committed to it. So,
that's great.
In terms of the relationship with Patrick, that's pretty exciting. As I said, we have the, both from being from Connecticut, meeting him through, Crown Legacy matches. I chat with his brothers a little bit on Instagram. We have some banners and some flags for this season that we'll be premiering. We're really we're trying to choose between the Agyemang Hive, which is one term that folks have used for his supporters, or the Agy Gang. So there's some debate there.
Agy Gang is pretty good.
Agy Gang's better.
Yeah,
that's better.
So his brothers have kind of waited on that too, and they're great guys as well. So he has two twin brothers.
Oh, okay, that's great.
Well, Greg, thank you so much for joining us. I did like the MLS featurette they did on Patrick Agyemang in January. They showed some footage from the D3 and him playing on with the football lines and everything at that low level of college. So it just kind of, his story speaks to what a lot of us think, that with the current American soccer scouting, that there could be just diamonds in the rough at these places, kind of off the beaten trail. So that's great to see. But thank you so much for joining us and shedding light on the district that you hail from, North Carolina. We put it on the map, put a peg in North Carolina. Now, I think we'll have to have you as our correspondent in that part of the country moving forward, and seeing how year 4 for Charlotte FC goes. So thank you so much from Mint City Collective, Greg Franco. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank
you, Greg.
Thanks, Rob.
If you guys haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button. We are on the march to 1,000 subscribers here on the channel, and you should be next.